Alright, welcome back. I know it's been a little while, so sorry, but we will be starting our new series, and this will be on Daniel. So this is one of my favorite books of the Bible. It's just fascinating to me, all of the prophecy and just who this man was and all that he did for Christ. So we will be focusing on him. So this takes place in 620 BC, and this is when Israel was taken captive by Babylon, and this is Daniel, who was also taken captive, and here's what we're going to be reading. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, and some of the vessels of the house of God. And he brought them into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and placed the vessels in the treasury of his God. Then the king commanded Ashpenaz, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and of nobility, youths without blemish, of good appearance, and skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding, learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace, and to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. The king assigned them a daily portion of food that the king ate, and of the wine the king drank. They were to be educated for 3 years, and at the end of the time they were to stand before the king. Among these were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah of the tribe of Judah. And the chief of the eunuchs gave them names. Daniel he called Belshazzar, Hananiah he called Shadrach, Mishael he called Meshach, and Azariah he called Abednego. Alright, so we get to this place. Jehoiakim is king of Judah. It was his 3rd year of reign, and Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came and took over Jerusalem. The Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand and some of the vessels of the house of God. So this is something that God had prophets predicting. This is something that was going to happen. It was going to happen because of the sins of the people, right? All the kings were not leading in the best ways, and God, it was against his covenant, so he did his promise and had Babylon completely capture Jerusalem. This was, again, long overdue, but so this happens, and they took stuff from the house of the temple and brought it into the temple of his god treasury. Anyway, so the king commanded Ashpenaz, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and nobility, youths without blemish, of good appearance, and skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding, learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace, to teach them literature and language of the Chaldeans. So we get into this place where Nebuchadnezzar understands, in order to kind of get more power and more influence, and maybe even begin to get more people bought into his ideas of the Jews, he needs to get some of their own, right? So he takes the youth, and that's something that is incredibly important, right? As Christians, we should be pouring into the youth because they're really important, right? Those are the ones who can make the biggest impacts. They have the longest time. They have just so much more opportunities. So Nebuchadnezzar also understood this, so he starts targeting the youth, and the ones who are without blemish, of good appearance, and skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding, learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace, and to teach them the literature of the language of the Chaldeans, right? So they begin to take these 4 young guys that are mentioned here, and they start kind of teaching them to be Babylonians, right? They teach them how to speak the language, how to teach other people of the Jews the language, they continue to pour influence into them. And that's something that we're seeing happening a lot with the time right now. Everyone is trying to attack the youth, right? They're going through the schools and trying to attack the children and trying to get them bought into these ideas, right? Because they know if they can impact the youth can impact the parents, and from there on out, just so much more impact. I think it's like a proven fact that when a kid becomes saved first, a lot of the time the parents will also become saved, right? Because that's just, kids do have an impact on what parents do and the way they think. And right, if the kid wants to go to church and they're bring their parents to church, right, that's more of a chance that they'll be saved. So you do need to impact the lives of those kids, and that's why we should be trying to make such a big impact as fast as we can in the lives of these young men and women, right? Because if we can get to them before the world can, we can just use it as a springboard and propel Christianity again and make these revivals happen. But it has to start with the youth, right? Because without the youth being bought in, without the youths, right? You see it with all the time with churches that have all older people, right? And no youth, is those churches tend to die really quickly because you need to have a range, right? You need those bodies who are younger and healthier and can, make an impact. All right, so that's what the king starts doing. The king assigned them a daily portion of food that the king ate, and of the wine that he drank, and they were to be educated for 3 years, and at the end of the time they were to stand before the king. Among these were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah of the tribe of Judah, and the chief of the eunuchs gave them names. Daniel he called Belshazzar, Hananiah he called Shadrach, Mishael he called Meshach, and Azariah he called Abednego. Alright, so the king gives these guys Babylonian names, and he gives them Babylonian names to first of all try to remove their history, right? That's what the people want to do, right? They want to take away the history. Just like people attacking U.S. for things they did in the history, right? They're trying to get rid of it. They're taking away team names of sports teams because they have the name Indian in them, or like, so taking all those away, right? That's what they try to do. They try to remove you from your own history, and that way you kind of forget where you come from. That's what Satan tries to do. He tries to get us sidetracked and where we forget where we come from, and then we kind of just start doing our own thing. We focus on the world instead of on Jesus, right? So this is something that is always kind of being poured into kids, and it's truly sad, right? So they changed Daniel, Hananiah, and Shadrach, or Hananiah and Mishael and Azariah to Belshazzar, Shadrach, Mishael, Azariah, Abednego, right? They changed the names, and that's one way of just trying to remove history, right? Maybe make them more like Babylonians instead of the Jews, right? So that's something that we definitely will see, and we'll also see how God uses Daniel through this, right? But as of the start, we get into this place where Jerusalem has just been taken. They are now living in Babylon, and the king is now using these people, and he's going to try to keep that influence growing, and he's going to just keep working at making them Babylonians, right? So we're going to get next episode into what happens next, and it gets really interesting and some great stuff. So make sure you guys tune in next time.